With regarding to the plan, I come from the perspective, as you can see, I have a picture, I have the book of Imam Khomeini. I come from Iran originally. And so I've seen the world through the lens of the other side of how the empire works. How we look at the empire from beneath the boot as opposed to from above the boot. And every time we've seen the colonial project, Israel and its paymasters, UK and America, try to bring, as they say, peace to the world or change to the world in a positive way, especially to West Asia, it's always ended up somehow topsy turvy, somehow upside down. So, as much as I want for the Palestinian people and even the native Jewish and Christians that lived in Palestine before the whole colonial project Zionism, I want them to have peace. I generally don't think that America or even Europe, UK specifically, has any intention to bring a peace that is fair. And I noticed that President Donald Trump in his tweets has says, "I want to be fair on both sides," and that's just laughable. He literally is providing the weapons, the political backup, support, and the military means to annihilate another group of people. So how can he be fair on either side? And without going into what the Zionist lobby has on him, blackmail, that's irrelevant. What we're looking at is the facts on the ground. That you have a number of presidents who've come over the decades from the United States that have maybe been nuanced in how they show their support for the Israeli project, but the support has always been there. So, as much as I think that President Donald Trump, a lot of people are happy about the peace part of it. I'm also happy. I want less people to die. We can still see that Israelis are killing Palestinians. And so, what the reality is, and uh, Colonel, how do I refer to you? Sorry, Colonel or General?
Colonel.
Colonel. So, Colonel is a person who's been in the army, and she can attest that sometimes the reality, the facts are determined by power and force, unfortunately. And so that's why the Palestinians have resisted. The world has become unhappy and unaccepting of the Zionist project anymore on a general basis. In the last 2 years, many blood of the Palestinians had to be shed for this reality to take effect. And the fact is that it will have to be either internal collapse from the Israeli project, that it becomes not viable for those who are not native to Palestine but move there because of the project, and so then Israel can't be maintained the way it is. It has to be a combination of Palestinian and Jews and Christians to run that country, so it becomes one state, or it will have to be a battle. If the Israelis attack Iran again, this time the Iranians have made clear there will be no red lines. They've stated this. The military, Amir Mousavi, who's head of the military, has clearly stated that there will be no red lines. And if Iran has stated that, they don't say things without actually following through. That means that it will be battle to the death, unfortunately, on this occasion. And if that means that the Israelis may use a nuclear weapon or a tactical nuclear weapon, that may happen. And I think Iranians have that in their equation, that something like that may take effect. But then it won't be just Israel. It will be the whole region that will get to flame, because then Iran will have to attack American bases. American bases will have to counter against Iran. Iran will then have to seek support, or they will themselves join, then the allies of Iran, which is Yemen and Lebanon, Hezbollah, and the Iraqi Hashd Shadi. So the whole place will be engulfed in flame. And any vision of Saudi Arabia for 2030, any vision of Oman that I visit a lot, 2040, or anything of prosperity that was going towards that kind of direction, will just completely be wiped off the map, because it won't be just Iran and Israel and some bases in this region that will be fighting each other. The missiles will just go everywhere. So I just wanted to know from you guys what you think about the fact that if there is a war, and the second war, like if Israel attacks Iran again, To what extent do you believe that America is either supportive so they can get rid of Iran, or do they realize, because you're in the military, right? And so you have seen that you give facts to your generals and the generals give it to the people in authority. What they do with it is different. Does the president realize that he will set the whole place ablaze and impact America in a huge negative way? Does he comprehend that?
I don't think that President Trump comprehends it, and I don't think that our Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, I don't think he comprehends that. The generals probably do, because they listen to, the CENTCOM commander. I know that he's very Zionist, pro-Zionist. They always are, but they do have intelligence fed to them that they listen to. So they, I think, have an advantage over Trump, who isn't really listening, and he didn't know very much about this coming in to the he's very task oriented. Even when he was president the first time, he wanted to make a deal with the Taliban. There's no doubt about that, but he viewed that as a task that needed to be done, as a transactional agreement, and he almost had it. And of course, the Washington people in Washington, of course, reversed that. They fought that, and later Biden did continue with it, but it was not very well planned. Trump views these things as jobs, as a job that he can do, that an agreement, a contract that he can make. And he doesn't have the deep background history. He doesn't, when he's in a room with people that he's shaking hands with, he's trying to come to the positive. He wants to make something positive. He does not come to it, like you said, from underneath the boot. He doesn't see it that way. He sees it from the top. And that's a very different view than what you get. And also, he doesn't really know very much about Israel's history. And, Trump grew up in New York. He's a New Yorker. Many friends are Jewish Zionists, like Steve Witkoff, a great friend of his, known him for a long time, trust him, good guy, good American Jew, great. But American Jews also do not know the history and the activities that go on in Israel. They don't have insight. So he says, well, I'm talking to Witkoff. Witkoff is telling me this is good. We can do this. Witkoff knows nothing. Just because he's Jewish, you're not born with a knowledge of the history of the region. You have to learn that. And American Jews are very protected from a objective history of the founding of Israel and how it works there. So Trump is ill-informed. If he's ill-informed, then he could stumble into a nuclear exchange of some sort. In a well-meaning attempt to prevent Israel from being turned into ashes. He could, I don't trust that Trump has the knowledge base to do it. I think he will, if push comes to shove, he'll be very reactive. And that's not necessarily, that's not good. That's not healthy for Americans, quite frankly.
Just a quick follow back before I pass it to someone else. Other than Trump, there must be other mechanisms in the United States that guide what the outcome or decision making situation is, right? I mean,
well,
the Secretary of State, but he's pro Israel.
Our Secretary of State also very unqualified and pro-Zionist anyway. So even if he was qualified, his attitude is very much, I will defend Israel to the death. The Congress, unfortunately, unless they're extremely frightened of something else, are mainly frightened of Israel. Okay, they're mainly frightened of AIPAC. They're going to do what AIPAC says. They do not want to be called anti-Semitic. They do not want to be to be primaried in their races. They don't want to lose donations. So our Congress, and you can say, well, we have a constitution. The United States is not supposed to go to war unless there's a constitutional declaration of war. We haven't had that since World War II, but we've been at war every single year since then with some country and multiple countries. So it would be nice to think that the United States has checks and balances on their foreign policy, but our Constitution grants the foreign policy decisions to the executive. And then we elect people who really, they don't run on foreign policy. Trump ran on putting America first and stopping interventions, pulling the troops back. Then as soon as he got into office, what does he do? Nothing. He does not do anything that he said, because he is not really armed with the kind of background where he can make the case. He said, well, Americans don't want war, so I'll say I'm against war. But he has no concept of how you actually prevent war, especially when you're allying with a Sparta state, a little state of a nasty little Sparta. And that's what you're dealing with Israel. And they will, we were talking a bit about the Samson option. Israel has no friends. The United States is not Israel's friend. We're only useful to Israel. If we become no longer useful to Israel as a source of political backing, cash, weapons, top cover, whatever it is, we're not useful to them. We are an enemy. And you could ask probably, let's say there's 7.5 million Jews in Israel right now. 7.25 million of those Jews will say, cut America off. If they're not going to help us, they're our enemy. So I don't see where we could avoid it by our institutions. Our institutions are weak when it comes to this, and our president is not well informed, and neither are the people he listens to. Rubio, have you watched Rubio? Not even about the Middle East. Rubio is not very bright. Okay. I mean, he might be okay. I think he's probably slightly above average because he's been a successful human being. He knows nothing. He knows no history. I don't know why they put him in as Secretary of State. Probably because of Israel. He's devoted to Israel. There's no doubt. But he's not a guy that could give useful advice to the president. And there's only one I can think of, and that's Tulsi Gabbard. She's also a Zionist, the National Intelligence Officer, Tulsi Gabbard. He appointed her. She is pro-peace. She fought in Iraq. She knows the stupidity and the lies that went into our wars. But when she told the truth and said Iran back in before the 12-day war, Tulsi said, hey, they don't have a nuclear weapon now, and they won't have it for some years. And that's if nothing else changes. This is the facts. So Trump said, oh, whatever, we're going to do a 12-day war. He does it. And they asked him, and he goes, oh, I don't have to pay attention to her. Well, she's the only one that knows anything. So it's not a good thing. But, Trump does listen to people he respects, like Putin. He really does respect Putin. He wants Putin to like him, and Putin's playing it perfectly because Putin is very respectful to Trump, and he does admire the things that you can't admire about Trump, his strength, his big picture thinking. I think a lot of people can like that. So you've got Putin, and also the Chinese Prime Minister Xi. These are the people that Trump believes are his peers. Okay. And Netanyahu, but Netanyahu is like your cousin. He's like your bad cousin. You're stuck with him. They fight every once in a while. But I think the other major powers, some of the BRICS powers, could play a role in helping Trump negotiate what he's gotten himself into. Because, well, now again, let's say those 20 points are perfect. We don't need appendices or chapters because everybody's going to agree on how it's all implemented, how every 20 point is implemented. Let's say that happens. Let's say Israel does what they're supposed to do. Well, we shouldn't have a war, right? I mean, if they really, in good faith, entered into an agreement, we shouldn't have this war. But I'll tell you, Colonel McGregor, Colonel McGregor, he's on Judge Knapp, and other people too, all predicting another confrontation with Iran, another, whether it's a decapitation, sneak attack, and then followed by volleys, whatever. They're expecting it. Everyone is expecting it by the end of the year. And that's very dangerous. It's very dangerous.
I agree. I do think that there will be conflict because Israel is on the precipice of complete destruction because of what it's done. And so it's I've noticed people say when we discussed it, like they're attacking Qatar, they're attacking Syria, they're attacking, why they're acting so violently and irrationally. I said, from your outside, because you're thinking logically, you think it's irrational. But if you put yourself into the mind of an animal that knows it's surrounded and it's going to be attacked, or its leg is caught in a trap, it will cling at everything to survive. And that's what Israel is doing. So for it to now, for some reason, persuade President Trump and the US government to assist it in attacking Iran makes sense, because that's the only thing that will keep it going. Because if there's no US support, literally it will collapse within weeks. There's nothing that will maintain its structure. So that's why I think, like you said, all the persons that you mentioned, I watch all of you guys and on the different podcasts, and I follow you, and what you guys say is absolutely true, that the war will come, just when we don't know. I pray it doesn't, because I was in Iran when the 1980s war with Saddam and Iraq took place, and my hometown was on as the first town that got invaded. So we lived in Khuzestan, Khorramshahr. We lived on one side of the Rab, and my mom would hear explosions in the afternoon. She'll come out, she didn't see anything. Then my dad will drive up, to the house and get the kids into the car. So we were I was 2.5 years old. We got into the car and we drove to the other side of the town, and the tanks will start. War is good for anyone. I wouldn't wish it on even my worst enemy. But if the Israeli government sees that it has no other choice but to try and destroy Iran to maintain itself and keep itself alive, and I don't think it's just a Netanyahu problem. I generally think it's a Israeli Zionist problem that is, I can't say every single Israeli, but most of them support whatever has to be done for that country to survive. And if that means killing as many people as possible, that's really sad. All the protests that we see in Israel is not for the war to stop because they care about Palestinians, is because they want a ceasefire so that their hostages can come back. So, so Israel as a nation, unfortunately, has gone to the part where it's difficult for you to have two-state solution, because there's no other state left other than Israel. They've literally created a one-state solution for themselves. If they had stopped in 1967 at that borders and not, all the occupation into the West Bank and so forth, there could have been an argument, and the Saudi would have supported it. They have lots of money, a lot of political influence. They don't have military influence, but political finance, and the Qataris. But now they're like, okay, two-state solution. What two-state? It's literally little islands that are tiny. How are they going to become a country? So, we just hold our breath and hope that America sees that Israel is a sinking ship, and if they do attack, it either they do what with President Trump did, which is just a few bombs here and there and then step back, or just not get involved and let Israel. But the problem is, I feel that Israel is, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but Israel is an extension of the foreign policy of the United States and the UK. So they're not doing it. They're not doing it out of people are always saying that, Israel controls America. I don't think that's the case.
That's right. And people elected Trump twice now, both times to end the empire, to bring troops home. But the policy, the colonialism, the second phase or third phase of colonialism is us, the Brits a little bit, but using allies to certainly what we've done to the Middle East in the past 30 years. I mean, that's an obsession. It's an obsession, but it's also a foreign policy. And that foreign policy really hasn't changed. But, Israel is suffering economically. Nobody's going to tourism. The tourism is not happening. I know Intel, right before Trump decided he was going to have the U.S. government purchase 10% of Intel stock so they could be a non-voting member of the board. Right before that happened, he was very upset with the head of Intel. And one of the things that guy had done 5 days before it came out that Trump was mad at him was he closed down, 2,500 positions that Intel had in a chip factory in Israel. And that chip factory wasn't targeted in the 12-day war, but stuff around it, I think, was. So it was in a war zone. Of course, Israel's not very big. It's a war zone. They were receiving bombs and destruction. And Intel, of course, wasn't doing well anyway. And the guy with the Chinese name, he's a Filipino American, I think. Anyway, he had cut jobs around in various places that Intel has factories. One of them was in the high-tech district of Israel, and I can't remember the name of the town. Anyway, right after that, Trump goes in and puts 10% of it. I haven't checked to see if they're going to restore chip manufacturing, but I'm telling you, Israel is suffering terribly. And here's the problem with the BDS movement, which has been going on for a long time, and of course got a big boost with what they're doing in Gaza. But also anti-Israel perspectives have been growing so rapidly, particularly since October 7th, but they had been growing before. And things like that can sometimes balloon rapidly. And I think the anti-Israel sentiment ballooned rapidly. The problem is you can't just pop the balloon and now it's all going to go back the way it was. It is not going back to the way it was, because once a person, individuals, companies, once they change their mind based on data and evidence that has convinced them that I don't want to do business with Israel, I will not buy Israeli-made products, I will not support weapons manufacturers or bulldozer manufacturers, I'm going to divest. Once you've made that decision, we're human beings. Check that box, move on to the next decision. We're not revisiting that. So this movement hurts Israel, not just in the past couple of years, not just today. It cannot be reversed. Israel is suffering. So, which means it's not so great to go to Israel. I don't want to travel there. There's many other places to travel. I don't need to buy Israeli products. I have found new sources for what I need. I've moved on. And I think many in the world has moved on. And I do think the animal in a trap, or the desperate trapped animal, and I live on a farm, so I know what you're talking about in person. This is what Israel is exhibiting, which is dangerous for us too, because we don't see it. Americans don't really see that. We think everything's like it was. It's not like it was. Israelis are desperate. And also they're, like you said, you hate to say a whole bunch of people are hateful, but in fact, what many Israelis, the vast majority of them, are taught, and what they're not taught, makes them believe a certain thing, that the world is not true. It's not true. They believe that they have every right to kill people of a certain religion or ethnicity. They believe if a rock is thrown, you can kill the person who threw the rock. They believe that. Now, as Christians don't believe that. Okay, an average Christian, he has to turn the other cheek. I'm not saying Christians aren't violent and they don't turn the other cheek, but they're taught to do it. But Israelis are not taught to turn the other cheek. They are taught what Netanyahu has said: if you harm Israel, we will come after you 7 times harder, 70 times harder. So this attitude is destructive. It's dangerous, and it's not an attitude that builds friends. So who in the Middle East would like to work with Israel? Who really wants to work with people like that? Who really wants to work with a government that is so obviously in for itself and its own survival? You can't cut deals with a government like that. They do not care about you. They do not respect the other people in the contract. So it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for them. And I think 20 years from now, my ideal, let's give Israel a city-state. Let them withdraw, like Sparta collapsed. Let's go back to a city-state on the Med, in northern Israel, whatever, eastern or western Israel, on the beach, couple beach towns, put a big wall around it, and your 9 million people can live there quite comfortably. And they can be all the racist Zionists they want to be. It's not a problem. And then there is room for a Palestinian state, a huge Palestinian state. And that's all that it ever should have been, was a city-state. Because I know I'm probably wasting time here, but I'm a farmer, and I grew up a farmer, and that's what I do now. And I'm telling you, the people that populated Israel, I always thought it was shocking that they made kibbutzes, and they had kibbutzes with farms and gardens. And then they put city people from Germany and Belgium and France and all these places, urbanites who hadn't grown anything at all, and said, now you can go live in a commune and you can farm. It's almost like punishment. It's not something that they were. No, I mean, it wouldn't be punishment for me. I mean, the commune part would be, but I like digging in the dirt. I like growing things. I like taking care of animals. That's what I do. But to take city people who have never done that and put them in a foreign country, which was a foreign country for them as Europeans, and then make them farm and dig in the dirt. What a sacrifice they must have felt this was a terrible thing they're doing. But they're not suited for country life. They're not suited for country life. They are suited for urban life. And how they talk about Gaza can be another city like Dubai. Well, it can't be, and it shouldn't be. But I can imagine a city like Dubai within the 67 borders, but probably half of that, maybe a fourth of that, and have a city or two that are trading cities, wealthy cities, places where, because there's room for all kinds of people in the world. Absolutely room for them. And Israel's trying to force something that is really not even natural for European Jews. This is not their heritage. And I'm not saying 2,000 years ago. That's a joke. But I'm talking about in the 40s and the 50s, when you guys moved from devastated urban areas of Europe and you came down and started to try to grow things. You were kind of out of place. This was forced, artificial. And I'm all for things that make sense. Israel does not make sense to me at all. It would make sense as a much smaller, urban, mini Dubai on the Mediterranean. That would be beautiful. And that could satisfy Zionist urges. And of course, they would be demilitarized. I see it as the Vatican. The Vatican has Swiss guards. I can think that the UN would provide security and they wouldn't have to do any military stuff at all. They could be a prosperous member of the global community. But they don't want that. They want to kill everybody. So it cannot last. It cannot persist like this. There has to be a real solution for people to live together peaceably.
Can I make 2 quick points before I pass it on, and then further what you stated about Israel? Israel is that brand is completely burnt now. Be it a small state, a city state, the name Israel is completely negative brand that you don't want to use associated with anything anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So that if you're Israeli traveling abroad, people will not be happy with you. If no one will want to do business with you, especially after the point that you made that once the fighting stops and the clearing is done and the thousands and thousands of war crimes and people that will be found, this will haunt Israel worse than what happened to Nazi Germany. Because Nazi Germany was a country that got taken over by a group of people. Those people were removed. So Israel was implanted, as you said, unnaturally onto Palestine. Crimes were committed. So Israel. And final point is, US still has a ability to get out of this without completely burning itself with association with Israel. If it could negotiate with the powers that are in that region and been in that region for 2, 3, 4, 5,000 years, such as Egypt and Iran, they could still maintain, because Iranian, you probably know, the government of Iran really wanted to deal with America badly.
Yes.
To do business, to do trade, investment, both ways, Iran in America and America in Iran. But America at every single stage has, with the JCPOA and then Donald Trump leaving it, and then just recently in June where they wanted to sign a deal where sanctions will be removed and Iran will put limitations on this nuclear whatever. Iranian government, especially the reformist ones, the liberal ones, they really, really want to do a deal with the United States. They really love the United States. They look up to the United States. They've studied there, so they love, and America, every point, instead of saying, okay, I've got a group of people who are running the country who really like us, we can get the best deal out of them.
Mm-hmm.
They keep scattering it. And so every time they do that, what do? They empower those people who said, didn't we tell you that you can't trust the United States?
That's right.
So the people, that's why when the negotiations were happening and then the attack happened, people were coming in support of the military and the leader Ayatollah Khamenei, where they wouldn't have done a week before that.
That's right.
Because they realized that no matter what we try to do to negotiate with the U.S. government, they don't have a problem with the U.S. people, but with the U.S. government, they keep backstabbing us. There's no point. So if America was smart, they're like, okay, let's cut our losses. We tried this for 40, 50 years with the Israel project. It didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
the world is shifting. Economy, military power is moving from the West back to the East, where it came about 400-500 years ago.
Mhm.
We can still negotiate a powerful position for ourselves as a big player without completely burning ourselves by this complete and illogical support of the Israeli project.
Yeah,
Because once the Israeli project sinks as a ship, it will be, if it's anchored to whatever it's anchored to, it'll pull that down as well.
that's right.
And I don't know if you're a Christian, but I genuinely believe, and we have this in Islamic teaching, that God listens to the prayers of the oppressed more than anyone else. If you're oppressed and you ask God, no matter if you have no one who to support you, but you have God and you pray to God, He will answer. And it may take time.
Mhm.
He will do it in His own time, but He will answer it. I genuinely don't want America. I used to live in America for 4 or 5 months when I was younger. We did a student exchange in Florida. America is a great nation, it's a great people. I genuinely hope that they don't attach themselves to Israel to such a point that the prey of the oppressed reaches the shores of the United States. Not because of any other country will attack it, but look at America right now with all the problems of
Yeah,
internal problems that you have.
absolutely.
Texas may go separate, California, all of, God forbid, civil war, anything like that. There's more weapons in America than there's, citizens. We've heard that how many times? So America doesn't need an enemy from outside to cause it problems.
No,
It itself could cause itself problems. So
yeah,
I don't know. Hopefully, people in America will listen to podcasts that you speak on and others that you mentioned, and they put pressure on their representatives, and slowly, those blocks that are controlled by the Zionists and those kind of lobby groups are removed, and independent congressmen and senators come in, and they can then make a change that the country, the West, really needs. And I think America can lead other countries, especially France and Germany, and to some extent UK. UK is very independent in its malign activity around the world. It's been doing
yeah,
it for
that's
400
true.
years, and it's a specialist at it. But other countries like Germany and some extent France and other European countries, they look up to the United States. So America has the ability to influence them, even Japan and Australia.
Hmm.
So fingers crossed.
Yeah, I wish that your advice could reach President Trump's ears, because what you're saying though really would appeal to him when he's calm, and the things that he likes to do. Um, that would be very appealing to him, because I think it makes sense to him. And it's funny, not funny, but after the 12-day war ended, he named it the 12-day war. I don't know what that was about, but on the 13th day, he goes, or right after he dropped the bombs, the big bunker busters from the states. He dropped the bombs, and as soon as they landed, he goes, "Peace is we have peace, we have peace." And of course, that's crazy, but the debate here in getting more friends in the region, real friends, and not, I mean, nations can't have friends, but having people we can work with, people we can trade with, that makes everyone wealthier. That's the language I think Trump understands. And but I don't think anybody close to him is saying that at all. And of course, Israel pays a lot of money to APAC and elsewhere to make sure that no congressman will ever say a kind word about uh, Iran ever. They always the enemy, and is not our enemy. It's never been our enemy. Well, maybe in 53, but not any time in the past 70 years. Iran has not been our enemy, but that's the language that our Congress uses. So, but Trump doesn't care about Congress. So your words need to go directly to Trump. That would be very helpful to him, I think, to see it that way.
There's a lot that both of our countries can benefit from each other.
That's
And
right.
Iranians have a natural natural affinity and affection for the United States,
Yeah.
because when the UK came in and found the oil in Iran, they went to the United States to say we need an accountant, and I forgot his name. He came and he tried to advise Iran on how to do the accounting for the country,
Oh
king,
yeah.
the Qajar king, right? So 100 years ago. And even when he said 1953, Mossadegh actually liked, Prime Minister Mossadegh liked United States
Yeah.
and preferred United States over the UK, because the United States hadn't been tainted by
Yes.
200 years, 300 years of empire and tyranny. It's just after Second World War, United States, I think, started to taste the flavor of power,
Yes.
And I said, okay, so coup d'etats work. I'll do it. The UK is inviting me to do coup d'etat in 1953. Let's try it out. And unfortunately, they liked it because it was an easy way of them bringing to power people that
Yeah.
suited them.
And
Long term.
all those coup d'etats, there have been hundreds, really. They don't have to tell the American people until afterwards. And that's if they tell them at all. They can always deny it was, they say, oh, we didn't do that. So it's a secret kind of way of running a republic. We're supposed to have a republic. I mean, that's what the Constitution outlined. And yet they are running a secret imperial foreign policy out of the republic, and they never have to tell the people, anything. And well, that has got a lot of Americans upset over decades, and which is why Trump was elected. You know, a guy that the Republicans hated, and he used to be a Democrat, and he runs as a Republican, and the whole Republican Party in the first time hated him, said terrible things about Trump, but the people liked his message because he said, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to talk to you. And boy, did he talk. I don't know how honest he was, but he talked, and he really appealed to how Americans feel. We don't like our government. I don't care if you're a Democrat, Republican, I don't care who the president is. We are not happy with our government at all. And part of it is because it does things like what you've said. It's been its practice.